Good evening and welcome everybody to the Canadian Football Fanatics, and this is the CFF weekly show. Back to our regular scheduled 6 o'clock start. I guess driving the ship, and Blake's back in his shotgun chair for this week. But excited to talk some football here again, as always. Um, on a odd week with only 6 teams playing, 3 games total last week. Was kind of a little bit weird without that fourth game, but was another interesting week. Had some upsets. We'll talk about it with Blake. Thanks for joining me as always, buddy. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing a lot better than Friday. That sour taste has been somewhat rinsed out of my mouth. I know we're gonna rehatch it here in a minute with the 3 minute drill, but it's kind of nice having this bye week. It's kind of nice to reset, refresh. Just talk about 4 games that none of them involve the BC Lions. So we have their we have our weekly show, and then you and I get a bit of a break because there's going to be no post game and no pre-game preview, of course, this week. So it'll be nice to record tonight and then kind of have or at least for myself. I know you don't, but for myself, I'll have a week off until the next show.
But basically, I'll be able to have Friday to Sunday to kind of enjoy, just watch some football and really just not have to worry about going live or recording any sort of reactions, which is nice. I agree with that. Also, we'll be recording as always our Canada West football show tomorrow with Matt Young. So other than that, though, don't really have much on the docket other than just watching some football this weekend. I'm excited. There's some really good matchups that I'm really excited to kind of sit down and watch from a fan perspective. That obviously there'll be some rooting interest from maybe a Lions fan perspective, but just as a football fan, I'm really interested in seeing some of these matchups here this week. But can't get ahead of ourselves, Blake, because as always, we got to open up the show with 3 minute drill, not 2 minute drill, folks. The 3 minute drill here. We are in Canada. And unfortunately, Blake, as you mentioned, buddy, let's get into it. We have to rehash last Friday night's no show by the BC Lions, unfortunately, on home turf. Was very disappointing to see them, um, you know, get out of the gates very slow. Find a little bit of momentum there going into halftime. But what Coach Campbell mentioned, he thought that the team needed a spark there. Obviously, with the quarterback change going into the second half, Lions weren't able to find much of a spark. Vernon Adams, I think, maybe about 75 or so yards passing, one interception. To be expected, I think, coming back from an injury like that, having to get his timing back, stuff like that. And then on top of things, was not given any favors by his offensive line, was really hung out to dry in a lot of ways. I believe it was 7 sacks that the Toronto Argonauts registered, along with the one interception. So, led by their defense, I know we don't like to give Chad any credit, and I don't think he really did much to kind of leave an impact on this game. I think it was really led by their defense and where they're really strong at, right? Where they're able to run the football,
Mhm.
control the line of scrimmage, give their quarterback, whoever it may be, some time, keep the defensive line off them, which we saw. Matthew Betts, they were able to get some pressure. Christian Covington, they were able to get some pressure around Chad, but really, I don't remember if we registered any more than 1 or 2 sacks in the game. So
I
it
think
was
it
kind of
was two.
yeah, it was a bright spot for us the last few weeks of getting pressure, getting home, stopping a lot of drives. But we saw that, the Argos are built in the right way. They're built up front on the offensive and defensive lines, able to get 7 sacks, cash in on an interception as well. And they were able to come in BC and get a 33-17 victory for the first time in a long time. I believe it was, I don't remember the exact years it's been, but they don't come out west very often. And it's very hard for the East Coast team to come out west with the time change and all that sort of stuff, and they were able to do it on a 7 o'clock kick, and it was very impressive for sure. So the second of 3 matchups was a stunner in many ways, with Hamilton pulling off a upset 37-21 over the Ottawa Red Blacks. And I think probably the biggest talking point that would be from a Red Blacks perspective is the 5 turnovers, obviously, and then we saw Drew Brown get sit down there to basically to end the third quarter, then going into the fourth quarter. Masoli is able to muster, 2 back-to-back scoring drives, cut it to within an 8-point game there in the late in the fourth quarter. But once again, Hamilton was able to kind of put the foot on the gas and pull away there at the end, making a 37-21 final. And that game was probably not as close as the final score for a majority of that game. Masoli was able to come in, you know, quick boom boom score. I believe they went 2-and-out on defense. They got a 2-and-out on defense, got the ball right back, were able to march down the field again, cut it to 29-21, if I'm not mistaken, it was. And then,
Yep.
Hamilton once again, led by, Bo Levi Mitchell, had another, pretty impressive game. I believe he was just under 300 yards, but what was finding Stephen Dunbar, I believe he was over 150 yards and a touchdown, eight or nine receptions. And then, the kind of extra that they got is not a defensive touchdown, but a special teams touchdown from Lawrence Woods, generating an extra score. Only really They only had 3 touchdowns offensively, right, with, the 2 by Bo throwing and then 1 by, uh,
Greg Bell.
Greg Bell, their running back. And actually we heard, I'm sure we'll get into it, but James Butler is supposed to be getting back into the lineup, so it's interesting coming off a game like that from Greg Bell. I believe he was just under 100 yards as well and a touchdown. Um, just a really good team effort by the Hamilton Tiger Cats. Once again, able to put together a 2-game win streak here, and then let's see if they're able to generate any kind of momentum here down the stretch, because I guess they're not technically eliminated. So, last but not least on the week, another tie this season, 19-19. Well done, Blake. All you can do is face palm, man. 19-19, Calgary and Montreal tie. And this game was really an interesting one to start off with. Montreal really not having possession of the ball at all in that first quarter. Right away, the Calgary was able to go down the field, score a touch,
Fumble.
fumbled on the, I believe, first play of their opening possession. There, I believe, was Fletcher fumbled for Montreal. Calgary was able to go down the field, capitalize on the field goal, be 10-0. And then I believe they also had a kick return on one of the returns. Montreal fumbled as well. So just two first quarter fumbles really kind of put them behind the eight ball. And then late in the game, Calgary had an opportunity to kind of win that one, put it away, and they had two costly. I believe it was one of them was like a personal foul, and then I forget what the other one was that made it
It
a
was
long.
like a taunt or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was just very unneeded. And Calgary unfortunately wasn't able to get the win, get into overtime, and they were able to trade. I think it was three field goals or something like that.
Two.
Um,
They they
two
they played too many games. So
Yeah, too many games. One into overtime at 13-13, and ended at 19-19. Um, Another tie on the year, and it just puts things into it's a little bit more interesting, especially for our picks, and adding another tie in there as well. But that will end this week's 3-minute drill, folks. Blake, before we bring in Coach, what was kind of something that stood out to you from last week's action?
yeah, just how weird the week ended up being. Like it was not none of us picked. I'm gonna spoil this for later, but all four of us ended up going 0-2-1 on the week because you and I, and Coach and Shane for that matter, we all swept both BC and Montreal or BC and Ottawa, pardon me, to win their respective games. And then you and I picked Montreal. Coach and Shane picked Calgary, and even like in my in a different pick 'em pool that I'm in, the winner of the week had one correct pick, and then they were closer on the spread. That's why they won. So it was just really a weird week overall. All the favorites either lost or didn't win the game if you include Montreal. So just a really weird week overall. I think that's good for the CFL. It shows how much parity there is in the CFL, but it's not so good for the top teams like Ottawa and Montreal because it shows them that if they don't play their best every single week, they're just as susceptible to losing as anyone else.
My apologies. I think well said. I agree with your last point there, Blake, of, um, you know, maybe kind of good for some of those bottom tier teams that, things are still wide open, not as such for some of those top tier teams, but I think it's a really good thing for kind of, watching games on a weekly basis, because you kind of have to pay attention to all these games from now on. You can't really tune out, Hamilton game or, Edmonton now, because Edmonton is making their way up the standings now and stuff like that. So, I think it makes things from a interest standpoint really fun here down the stretch, and I can't wait till I watch a lot of these games. So let's bring in Coach Phil as always. Coach, thanks for joining us. How you doing?
I'm good. How y'all doing?
We're
Good,
doing good.
good.
We're doing good.
Good, good.
what were some of your takeaways from last week, Coach? Were you able to watch some of the games?
Yeah, I'm actually gonna react to him after we finish up here tonight. But it was a boring ass game. If you're just an average fan just watching, you're gonna see these games are pretty boring. But I did discover one thing this weekend that I can't believe I'm about to say it. At this point in time, right now, after this week's game, Skeleton might have the most electrifying receiving core in all the CFL. For a team that has a losing record, that receiving core is pretty nice, and I got to give credit where credit is due.
Yeah,
Now,
I
maybe
agree,
it's just
Coach.
maybe it's just the quarterback, but Dunbar, Bridges, White, that's a nasty trio, right? That's a nasty trio.
Yeah, Keandre too, Canadian as well, and I like their. I think that's why it's kind of been so question. And they just found ways, kind of similar to Edmonton there early in the year. They found ways to kind of lose some of those ball games. Bo Levi Mitchell was putting that offense and that team on his back there to start the year, and just really couldn't find ways to win games. And I think they could have been on a different outcome if they were able to win some of those games. 'Cause I agree, they have some weapons, they have some talent. We haven't seen JB. Hopefully, we're able to see him this week, and we can stop screaming for free JB. But time will tell, and like I said, they're in 3 minute drill. And they're still technically not out of things, so who knows what might happen. It'll be interesting to see down the stretch. So, Coach, I guess let's get into some news and notes as Shane here will join us in a little bit, I'm sure. Um, but unfortunately, we got the news that I believe we talked about Tyson last week, if I'm not mistaken.
We did.
We got the news that Darius Pickett will be out for the season. I believe a few days ago, he made a post on Instagram. So just super unfortunate. I think he was playing at a super high level this year and a big time blow. So what were your thoughts, kind of, I guess, Blake, on the news of that?
Yeah, it's a really tough loss for the Ottawa defense. Pickett, of course, gave us the quote of the year just a couple weeks ago after they played Toronto, and then it's just really unfortunate. I didn't watch the game live, so I didn't see the exact play, but I do know that he tore his ACL, which is why he's out for the rest of the year. And knowing that kind of injury, that'll probably put his training camp and the start of 2025 in jeopardy. But it's just really unfortunate. Ottawa's been dealing with a lot of injuries on the defensive line. I'm sure that Shane can attest to that when he joins us. And it's I don't know what's going to happen in the East. I mean, we have our picks a little bit later on, but the East, just all of a sudden it seemed like even just 2 weeks ago, it was like Montreal was going to be the clear cut number one, Ottawa was most likely going to be the clear cut number two, and then it was going to be Hamilton and Toronto. And after this week and after this injury news, I really don't know how the East is going to play out in the final 5, 6 weeks of the season.
Yeah, Coach, I saw your reaction, shaking your head. What were your thoughts when you saw the news of Darius's season being over?
Man, I shed a gangster tear. I had one little tear drop down because that's the heart of the defense right there, is Darius. I feel bad for Ottawa's defense, just Ottawa in general right now, because they've lost some heavy hitters to injuries. Santos Knox, obviously Darius, and a couple other guys. But the reality is, who's next up? Who's going to step up? You're not one singular person is going to replace the numbers that Darius puts up for them to make up for it. It's going to take three, four, five guys to do it, and everybody's got to do it differently. Everybody can't do it the same way he does it. You got to find your own way. And if you say it's just ACL, correct?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay, if
I
it's
didn't
ACL,
see any official announcement outside of the Instagram post.
well, because somebody said it was Achilles or it was an ACL. Either way, if it's just ACL, man, that thing is boom. Fix that. Be back in 6 to 8 months. He'll be okay. He'll be ready for training camp. So my prayers out to him. I reached out to him, and it's all good. So damn, that's just the wrong person to get hurt right now. Why couldn't it have been Chad fucking Kelly?
Talk to him. Um, Yeah, it's just a very big blow for Ottawa. I think they're going to be able to, stabilize this. As coach mentioned, this is not a single man that can come in and replace this, but this defense as a whole can, kind of come together, band together, and try to do the best they can. And it's going to be interesting because Montreal's kind of stumbled here. It was Ottawa's, I feel like, opportunity to kind of clinch clinch a playoff spot, and then maybe kind of get maybe creep a little bit closer to Montreal, and they both kind of just stalled out and kind of. Ottawa's not really been able to gain ground on Montreal, and Montreal really hasn't been able to gain ground on anybody else in the conference. So should be interesting to see. I know they play. I want to say they play this week, obviously, with Montreal and Ottawa, but I believe they play again in a few weeks as well.
They
So
do.
should have every opportunity to kind of, if you're an Ottawa team, not feel sorry for yourselves and really take this time to Montreal's not maybe clicking on all cylinders right now. Tyson Philpott's done for the year. Austin Max on the sixth game. So they're not looking the greatest overall. So maybe this is time for Ottawa to look at this and get motivated by it. But definitely a tough way to kind of go into the final stretch here without one of as coach mentioned, a pivotal leader in that locker room and specifically on that defense. So some signings that were this week. The transaction wire was very busy. And speaking about Montreal, they brought back Luol Ugawak from the NFL. He tried, I believe, with the Atlanta Falcons. He got cut in the summer and is coming back to Montreal after last season. So should be a good signing for them. I know I believe it was his rookie year last year, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Correct.
And was able to have a pretty productive season, and I think will be a very big added and almost luxury to them. With some of those guys inside Mufasa Johnson, stuff like that. So, Coach, what were your thoughts when you saw Luol's coming back to the CFL?
The rich just get richer, but that's a signing that they need to shore up that D line, even though they don't have Lim out there right now. That he can do just as much as Lim, if not, he can be utilized in places that maybe you can't use Lim, even though he's not playing. So it's a good pickup. It's getting somebody familiar, and that's a lot of size right there because that one weak spot on that defense was those tackles was on that D line.
Blake, what were your thoughts, buddy?
Yeah, I thought it was a really good signing for the Alouettes. I also just wanted to say quickly, like, what do the Falcons have against the CFL?
Yeah.
Like, wasn't it Matthew Betts that they cut to, and
No,
uh,
Austin Mack.
yeah, they cut Mac. I know that. Rourke was there for a bit this summer too, before he came back to the Lions. Like what do they have against the CFL? But no, seriously, like it's a really good signing for the Alouettes. If memory serves me correctly, I believe he possibly had a sack in the Grey Cup game last year. So it's just as coach said, the rich kind of get richer. They've had some two mediocre games back to back. They're probably lucky not to lose both, and I think the Alouettes know the standard isn't been good enough in those 2 weeks, and they're gonna try and change that as fast as possible.
I'm gonna
Yeah,
go for
and Coach, your team was busy making a signing with bringing in Raquel Armstead, former Ottawa Red Black. What were your thoughts on that signing?
check your attitude when you walk in the fucking door, homie. Check your shit. Put your shit to the side and get with the program because we ain't got time for none of those temper tantrums. All right, I'm saying that because Coach Mace has done an excellent job at turning the program around as far as everybody being a vital piece to the locker room. Don't bring none of that emotional bullshit. Don't bring none of those temper tantrums, or as your ass gonna be back on the fucking street. Coach Mace don't play that. None of them coaches play. Coach Lennon, Coach Daniels, they will. Everybody will check you at the fucking door and let you know, get the fuck out. So I like the pickup. We need an aggressive back like that with AJ still out, and it's a good matchup with a good tandem with Frankie. But nah, you gotta check yourself, partner. That's all it is to it.
I'm guessing you kind of share the same Blake there on the signing.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really good signing for the Riders. I completely agree with Coach. Check your attitude at the door. but I don't think this is good for AJ Ouellette for the rest of the year. I think this pretty much guarantees that whatever injury he's dealing with, I believe it was a groin or something like that.
It was a hip.
Um, was it a hip? Okay,
It's
so
a hip.
a hip injury. I think this pretty much rules him out for the rest of the season, or I don't think they would have brought Rock Armstead in. But for the Riders, I mean, it can't hurt. Like AJ, you don't know, he hasn't officially been ruled out for the season, so you don't know what his timeline is. You've had Frankie Hickson, who had a couple of games, but before their bye, he wasn't as good as he was when he first came into the lineup. So I don't think it can hurt. Like it's not. It can do nothing but help. It's not going to hurt them.
Yeah, I think should be an interesting one for them. Agree with Coach. I think check your attitude at the door. It's already cost you one opportunity. Don't make it cost you a second, or you might not even get three strikes in the CFL. You might be, buildings might, just not want to bring you in after that. You might not get another look, next training camp, stuff like that. So I think this is kind of an important opportunity for him because we saw how talented he was, with Ottawa there for the first, whatever it was, 15 or so weeks of the season, 14 weeks. Was very talented and was very productive. So I think he can be a very good addition here for the Riders if he's able to use it and be in the right mind space. So lastly on the signings, Winnipeg brought in a former BC Lion, former Rider, Jake Dolegala, and Byron Scott. Obviously, with Chris Streveler being out for the season, we talked about that last week as well. I guess I'll kind of put this, Blake, because hard to really like a backup quarterback signing because who knows if we're ever going to see him. But do you think this is of the available candidates, maybe the best option? And if you're a Bombers fan, does it give you any sort of confidence that if Zach Lyles were to go down, one of them can keep the offense afloat and give Brady the ball, kind of spread the ball around a little bit? I love that you're shaking your head as well. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I mean, if they're there to run short yardage, then yeah, sure. But if something were to ever happen to Zach, and of course we don't wish an injury on anyone in the CFL, unless maybe it's one certain player, but you don't wish an injury on anyone. And it's like if they turn to Jake, like I hope they enjoy 10 yards out that goes 15 yards over the receiver's head. Like he's not the most accurate guy. He's not a starter in the CFL in my opinion. He had his shot in Regina, couldn't do it. He had his shot in BC. Granted it was only for a week, and then as soon as Nathan came back, he knew his shot was done. But he had his shot in BC, couldn't make it work. For Brian Scott, I don't know a lot about the guy. I know some of the Argos fans were high on him and they were disappointed that they released him earlier in this year. So he's kind of up in the air. If Zach were to get hurt, I would fully expect it to be a open quarterback competition for that particular week, and then go from there. But as I said at the beginning, if they're there to run short yardage, then it's fine. I just hope you don't expect them to be your starter anytime soon.
I think yeah. Go ahead, Coach.
Uh, Brian Scott would be the guy. I know not a lot of people know, but he can throw. He got an arm on him. I'm trying, and he's one of the best kept secrets as a backup. He's the guy you're not worried about if the starter gets knocked out. You should be more scared of the backup because he's very Drew Brown-esque. He's a gunslinger, but he's in more control. He's under control. He can throw the ball. He can make great decisions. So I like it. I like that they went and got Brian Scott.
I think it's a tough thing for Winnipeg to kind of pivot like this. Week what are we in 16 to find who's basically on the scrap heap to put things lightly. Unfortunately, talking about Jake and Byron there, but Brian, but I think what also kind of makes things a little bit more difficult is like neither of them have really familiarity with the Buck Pierce playbook or scheme, right? So I think it's going to be extra hard for them to come in here, try to learn it as quick as possible if anything were to happen. Um, you know, is it very hard to keep, to the standards Zach Claros has played? He hasn't really played that good. Their offense has really kind of benefited from a strong defense and timely scoring drives, right? Where I don't remember exactly. I forget who they were playing, but I think back to a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago,
The
when they were
Hamilton
able to lead
game.
it. Yeah, the Kenny Lawler touchdown there late in the
Yeah.
fourth quarter. Zach was able to lead a scoring drive there late in the fourth quarter, which is in all reality the only drive that matters when we look back at it. Because I don't I always say, Blake, they don't ask how many, or they don't ask how, they ask how many, right?
How many?
It's not about style points. So at the end of the day, they get wins. They find ways to win. They have championship pedigree, so I think it's big for them. But um, you know, Zach really hasn't played that great that year, though, this year. So is it hard to kind of make sure that Brady gets his touches, and then make sure you get the ball out to Kenny Lawler, Nick Dembski, and a few of the other guys there that have kind of stepped up as well. So should be interesting. Is there any other signings, fellas, that I'm forgetting? I believe not. There, it was a busy one. There's those three. Um, as far as any other news and notes, obviously Trey Ford. We talked about it a little bit last week that he was going to be the starter going into the bye week. We thought was pretty interesting, but should be a good one, I guess, to kind of pivot here. Is there any other news and notes before we get kind of pivot here, guys?
No, just that the Miles Brown was officially fined the max amount for the Strevler hit. We all three of us talked about that last week. I don't really agree with the max fine, but I understand why the CFL had to do it. And there was a couple other fines, but nothing super significant.
Yeah,
Mm.
nothing major, I don't think, that I'm forgetting. I kind of did a quick little check on the few feeds and quick little internet search, but to kind of pivot specifically going into this week, talking about Trey Ford, talking about the Edmonton Elks, this is a huge few weeks here coming up for them. A back to back with Winnipeg. A very big opportunity for them to kick the door wide open, to go into first place and really make things very interesting here in the Western Division. So, Blake, what are your thoughts here in the next few weeks with Edmonton and Winnipeg playing back to back?
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting. I think the buy for both of these teams came at the worst time because the Bombers, what are they? They're at five in a row now that they've won to increase their record to 7-6. The Elks have come into the game winners of five of their last six after starting 0-7. And so I think both of these teams might have lost a little bit of momentum with the bye. And it'll be really interesting to see what happens. Edmonton has definitely looked better at home this year, even when they were 0-7. They were really close in their losses. And we talk about it every single week that I don't think the Bombers are as good as their record. But the fact of the matter is, they
They
keep
win.
winning games. So whether or not Trey Ford is going to be able to beat them, we'll just have to wait and see until Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, Coach, what are your thoughts on the back to back coming?
I'm not really tripping about the back to back. Teams need to rest, players need to rest. I mean, and people think it's a momentum killer. I don't think it's a momentum killer. I think just rest is what's needed. It kind of happens that way when it's a 9-team league, like we mentioned last week. Uh, what I will say though is, from a football perspective, for Edmonton to win these next two games against Winnipeg, first of all, for this first one, use that three-headed monster you have at the running back position. Utilize that and don't let do not try. These are not the two games to let Trey do too much. Win the field position battle, manage the clock well, keep Kalaros off the field, and don't let that defense. Don't get intimidated by that defense. There's holes in that defense where you can attack them, especially in the boundaries on the left side. And anybody and people say, "Oh, his brother." Go at him. I'm not. I'm more leaning towards. I know we're not doing picks right now, but from an Edmonton standpoint, you've got more weapons than they do solid DBs.
Yeah, and like you said, Coach, go at them. Like they probably playing backyard ball since they were little.
Exactly.
So
This is what you want. This is this. I'm shit. I'm ready for this matchup, baby. I'm ready.
I'm very excited, and I believe
We
this will be
gotta
the
wait till the last game of the weekend.
last game
Oh, it's Sunday. It's Saturday or
No, it's
Sunday.
Saturday.
Saturday. Saturday.
Saturday.
Oh, come on.
We got 2 Friday, 2 Saturday, coach.
Cause we play
But
Friday.
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh my.
so should be exciting though, guys. I think this is the first time that they'll be playing against each other in their entire I would imagine lives. You know, growing up playing on the same team, went to Waterloo together. Terrell has spent a little bit of time with the I believe actually, or no, Green Bay Packers. I was going to say Atlanta Falcons as well. Green Bay Packers came back to the CFL late last year. I do not believe they were able to play against each other, so this will be the first time competing against one another. Should be interesting, and I agree with Coach. I think it'd be better for the storylines, better for us to talk about next Wednesday of if they're able to trade forward, throws a game winner over his brother's head or vice versa. He's able to pick off Trey to end the game or something like that. Should be interesting to see how if he targets that side of the field, if he stays away, and it'll just be a cool thing. I would imagine TSN will do a good job covering it and talk about it during the broadcast and whatnot. So um, I guess to kind of pivot here quickly before picks, guys, I just mentioned it a little bit earlier with Montreal and Ottawa playing each other here in the next few weeks. Jay actually put in the chat they play October 14th, and it's in Montreal. So what is that? I guess a little over a month, I guess, or a little under a month from now they'll play each other again. What do you guys think about the Eastern Conference, and do you think Montreal still is the king still sitting in the throne?
Coach, I'll let you go first on this one.
Nobody's safe. Nobody's safe right now. Those injuries them injuries are hitting them at the wrong time. But for both teams, so it's gonna be who's gonna be the most healthy. Who the hell doesn't say that the diddler in Toronto doesn't sneak up in there?
I know, like
I was gonna say they're right there as well.
Hold on. How fucked up would that be if after all the bullshit that he went through, he gets them to the Grey Cup?
I might sell my ticket.
I hope not.
I swear to God, it is, and I gotta sweep. All three of us gotta sit there at BC Place and just shake our fucking heads.
Not coach. Not only that, the whole week will be like we'll have to talk about it too.
We have to sit there. Cause are we gonna do a live show?
I would love.
Probably.
I would love to.
I would love to do that. We do a live show, and we just have to sit there and just we have to think
Because
about
like
that. Think about
no,
it.
you know what the only good thing about that would be, Coach, is if either the Riders or the Lions play the Argos in that game, and they make him walk off the field crying. That would be the only good thing.
Hell, add the Elks into the conversation with that. That's just on me because of black people. But I want to see. I'm scared of that. I'm scared that. Think about it. After last season, the way they lost in the East Final, he kind of still has that redemption villain arc right now that he
Yep.
hasn't fulfilled yet. So if the diddler pulls it off, what do we do? The East is open. It's not open, but there's a slimmer daylight right now.
There is, and as I mentioned, with Montreal and Ottawa playing each other this week and October 14th, Montreal will play Toronto September 28th. That's in a few weeks, and then Toronto will also
Next
play
week.
Ottawa on October 19th. Toronto and Ottawa meet up. So, as Coach mentioned, nobody is safe. These teams are going to see each other in the next coming weeks here in the next month to kind of decide where things are going to sit going into the playoffs. And I think nobody is safe is such a concerning feeling and such an interesting as I mentioned to start the show though, like there's not a game you can kind of tune out now during the slate of CFL games. You have to kind of pay attention to all these games because things are going to matter here with seeding implications, stuff like that on the line, with these goddamn ties kind of throwing a wrench into things even more with um, you know teams not getting a victory or a loss but getting that
It,
one
it
extra point.
adds Sorry, Cole, I didn't mean to cut you off, but it adds Hamilton back into the picture with the crossover potential.
It does as well, and that's even more chaotic of seeing an Eastern opponent for the first time, I believe, would cross over to the
Yep.
West, still having that glimmer of hope. But gonna be an interesting stretch here, fellas, and I'm excited as a fan to be watching. So I think let's get into our weekly picks here, boys, and that starts Friday, as Blake mentioned, with Hamilton traveling to Toronto to the Six. Blake, I'm gonna pass things off to you, buddy. Who you got and why?
Man, oh man. Um, I think I'm going to have to go with Toronto in this game just because of how well the defense played last week. Um, Number 12 didn't really carve up the Lions defense, but he did enough with his legs. Like every time it looked like the Lions were going to get pressure, he would escape, scramble for 10 yards, get the first down, or he would escape the pocket, find the open receiver, and he just kind of dinked and dunked his whole way down the field the entire game. Hamilton is 2-0 against Toronto this year, and they both of those wins were in Hamilton. And for that simple fact, I just I can't see Hamilton sweeping Toronto. If they do, it'll make the playoff race in the even in the Eastern Division that much more entertaining. But yeah, as much as I don't want to, I think I'm gonna have to go with Toronto in this game.
All right, coach, who do you got and why?
I'm gonna roll with the Argos only because that defense still has some ball hawks. And that front line, whoever wins that front line battle, I think Argos front line, defensive front line, can overpower Scamilton's front offensive line. That's just how I see it. Whoever
I
wins that,
believe I believe McManus is coming back. That might have been some news as well. I
yes.
thought I heard on the broadcast last week that Wynton McManus was scheduled to come back this week, which is another added addition to that defense.
For the
Oh,
Argos, right?
it's a wrap,
Yeah,
man. It's a wrap. Wrap that shit up.
I too
Cole, what
unfortunately
about
got
you?
I got the Argos as well. As I mentioned, I think they're built in the right ways when it comes to what coach just said, offensive and defensive lines. They're going to be able to keep guys off of, Chad and be able to open up run lanes, and then get pressure on the other quarterback. And Bo's obviously at his age now is kind of where he's at. He's going to be about 7 or 8 yards back there. He's going to be a pocket passer. He's going to be doing a pretty good job, but I think this unit has an opportunity to get some pressure on him and cause some havoc. I think I like Sopik as well. They've been added him this year as a starting linebacker, and he's been a good kind of pressure player, and they use him in all sorts of ways. So I too am going to go with Toronto. I think this is another high for Hamilton. I believe they also had a 2-game win streak earlier in the year, and
They did.
they're Hamilton at the end of the day. You are what your record is. You're gonna have
Facts.
you're gonna have 7-game losing streaks. You're gonna have 2-game win streaks. You're gonna have kind of those up and down streaks throughout the year, and I think this is Hamilton's time to kind of come back down to earth. Everyone's talking about it of Hamilton still has a possibility. Hamilton still has a possibility. I think that's kind of more so just because it's a long
If they
season. We have to talk
lose
about it.
If
What's that,
they
Blake?
lose this game, though, in the East, they would be almost eliminated. Not mathematically yet, but realistically, they'd be eliminated. If they do lose this game, the best they could finish is 8-10, and the Argos, the worst they could finish is 8-10. They would technically have the tiebreaker, winning 2 out of 3, but I don't see them winning 4 in a row and the Argos losing 4 in a row to end the season.
Mm.
All right, boys. Shane has put his picks in the chat. He has the Tie Cats this week. He's going with
Wow.
Scamilton. So 3 versus the 1. Shane is going to be the brave one. Pick Hamilton. Um, Interesting, right? Because as Blake mentioned, they do have the 2 games already beaten over Toronto. Is right, not one, right, Blake?
2.
So I think why as I'm sure you are, I'm going Toronto. They're going to be the more desperate team to, kind of say goodnight to Hamilton, make sure they get at least one of these games and kind of get back on the right track for themselves here down the rest of the year. So Shane's got Hamilton. Let's go to the next game, which is coaches Saskatchewan Roughriders traveling to Calgary. Calgary plays good at home, coming off the tie versus Montreal. Coach, I'm sure you're going with your Riders, but tell us why.
One with Calgary.
For real?
Really?
Did I stutter?
No.
Coach, you going with Calgary. I'm writing down.
No, I'm just fucking with y'all. I'm going with the Riders.
Yeah, I knew it. I was like, not a chance.
Nah, it was a tough one. It was a tough one because being realistic, you want to root for your team, but you also need to see things with perspective and be in reality based. When we play Calgary in at McMahon, some wild shit happens. And the last time we did that, I can't even explain. We either go into overtime with them or we just throw a bunch of interceptions. I think right now with the way that we got Raquel, we're off the bye week. We got some fresh legs. This might be the week we end the losing streak, and we get back to business.
Yep, Blake,
That
you got.
defense needs to make something happen.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go with the Riders, and my reason why is who's their head coach?
Corey Mace.
Right, it's not Craig Dickinson anymore.
God
So,
damn right.
so coming out of the bye, when Mr. Dickinson would have taken the team bowling, Corey Mace did not like how practice was going. Not once, but twice. He stopped practice. The first time, he berated his team on the field. The second time, he was so mad that he told everyone to get off the damn field. Get off the damn field and go into the tunnel. And the whole team went off the field. They went into the tunnel. He said whatever he needed to say in private, and the whole team went back out and they finished practice. Corey Mace knows the last 7 weeks for the Riders have not been good enough. He knows that they're coming into crunch time, and he knows that if they lose these games to Calgary, they have, I believe, two coming up. The Calgary and the Riders haven't played each other yet this year. So if they lose these games to Calgary, they know their season is done again for the third year in a row. And if they lose these games to Calgary, they might not again for the third year in a row win a game after Labor Day. He knows that. The Riders are going to come prepared. The Stamps, they're the Stamps this year. Like their 20-year streak, I've been hoping and praying it would end for so long, and like they had their shot last week. Montreal tried to give them every single opportunity to win that game, and every single time Calgary was like, "No, you take it." Montreal's like, "No, you take it," and then in the end, nobody took it. So I am also going to go with the Riders. They win. They almost. Well, I guess Edmonton will have something to say about that, but I was gonna say they almost lock up third, but they stay in third for another week.
Yeah, well said, Blake. I like the way you said that, buddy. I too am gonna go with the Riders. Shane is as well. I think, as you mentioned, this is just the Calgary Stampeders this year. Although they, can I guess take a little bit of momentum from a tie versus Montreal, best team in the league, getting a point, gaining a point, staying alive as well. They are what they are. They are what your record is, just like Hamilton. I think they've just been the inconsistent team that they've shown all year. I think the Riders are a much better team than they've shown the last 7 or 8 weeks here, and this is maybe a get right game for them, able to get back on the right track and have some pivotal games here coming up, as you mentioned, with some of the teams in the Western Division to kind of decide things here in the last month of the season. So um, last, I guess, first game, excuse me, on Saturday is Montreal traveling to Ottawa. Blake, who do you got and why?
This one is extremely tough. Neither one of these teams have been consistent lately. The Alouettes for the last 2 weeks and the Red Blacks for the last four. They, of course, had the back to back with the Lions. They beat the Lions the first time. got trounced in touchdown Pacific. Then they trounced the Argos on the strength of their defense and didn't really show up. I mean, I know Jeremiah had those 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter to make it close, but other than that, they weren't really close to Hamilton. Um, I think I'm going to have to go with Montreal, though, in this one. They've been the best team in the CFL all season long. They haven't shown it in the last 2 weeks. They're dealing with injuries, but I think the Red Blacks are just dealing with one or two more injuries than the Alouettes. So I'm going to go with Montreal to get closer to locking up first place and that, of course, Eastern final at Percival Molson Stadium.
Coach, who do you got? Eastern Division Showdown.
I'm gonna go with Ottawa.
I like it.
I'm gonna go straight with Ottawa just off the fact that you catch them slipping. You're catching Montreal slipping. This is the opportunity to kind of let them know, hey, we ain't no suckers, we ain't no punks. When you got injuries, I got injuries. Who gonna crack first?
I,
Cole?
d- I don't hate it. To play spoilers, Shane has Ottawa, obviously. So that would be 2 Ottawa, 1 Montreal, leaving Blake. Nah, I will join Blake with Montreal. I went back and forth all day about these Saturday matchups. We'll talk about the Winnipeg Edmonton one. Montreal and Ottawa, I think, is going to be an absolute slugfest. That'll be decided by either or of their defenses. That'll be, I think, making some pivotal plays there late in the game, whether it's turnover, whether it's some key third down stops, etc. I'm going to go with Montreal because I've said it all along. I know I've went back on it a few times, but I'm going to pick Montreal until they prove me otherwise. They did, I guess, let me down last week with the tie, but I think Montreal is kind of going to be able to live with being comfortable. Cody Fajardo doesn't really turn over the ball too much. He knows that he has a good defense on the other side of the field. So, if you can limit risks, they can, I feel like, get away with some of these injuries that they've sustained on offense. Fletcher's been, I think, a great back for them all year. That's been able to kind of be their workhorse, and I think they need to lean on him a little bit more and not give Cody Fajardo so many opportunities to pass the ball
Yeah.
when you have a defense like that, and you know that you can kind of turn the ball over to them and let them get stops, let them get turnovers, whatever it may be, and hope to kind of win, through that way as well, and special teams as well, win kind of through those two to three phases of the game. And I'm going to go with Montreal to take Ottawa this week, but it'll be interesting to see what happens in the next 3 or 4 weeks, and when they meet again, if it's kind of similar. Ottawa's right there and kind of can maybe gain a gain on them or maybe even tie them in points or wins or whatever it may be. So this time I'm going to go with Montreal, but I think this will be a close one and could be decided late for either or team. So lastly is Winnipeg traveling to Edmonton to take on the 5-8 Edmonton Elks. Coach, who do you got and why?
Black people.
Shane or Blake, who do you got and why, baby?
I'm going to side with Coach on this one, and I am going to go with the Edmonton Elks. I think that this is a team that has truly turned itself around, and if that is in fact the case, what better way to show that than beating the defending four-time Western Division champions in the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in your own house with the man that you've declared your starter. Like MBT didn't play bad when Trey was injured, and from what I've heard, Trey was healthy the 2 weeks before the bye, or maybe not 100%, but he was healthy enough where he could have played. MBT did enough to keep that team afloat, and I think that the Elks, as I said, are really going to prove they're back for real. They're going to prove that they are a legitimate, not only playoff contender, but a possible Grey Cup contender.
Come on
Yeah,
now.
he went that far. I'm gonna pick Edmonton as well. Shane will as well. Um, and I think just gives me a lot of confidence in Edmonton that they can play some good defense, keep this game close, and then let Trey Ford be Trey Ford maybe late in the game. And that offense isn't going to be hard to outscore. I think, as Coach said earlier, they have the better weapons in Winnipeg if you put them on paper and you put them on the field and let them make plays. and hopefully Trey's able to do that. Should be an interesting one because as Blake mentioned, this is kind of the bed Edmonton's making now through the back half of the year. They're hitching their wagon to Trey Ford as their starter. Is that going to pay off for them now that they've gained a little momentum, caught a little bit of fire here? It would be so Edmonton to kind of burn out and fizzle out here and not find a way to get in the playoffs. But what brings me back is like they played good all year. They just found ways to beat Edmonton early in the season, and it they could be in first place realistically if they were able to win one or two of those games, which is crazy.
Yep.
And I think they have confidence in themselves. I think in that locker room. I think getting rid of a guy like Chris Jones, bringing in Jarius Jackson and Giro Simon to free that locker room up, really let those guys play freely, and I would imagine take some pressure off that locker room and not have that gray cloud over their heads and over that franchise which has been over their heads for the last number of years. So I think that kind of the skies are clearing, blue skies are starting to come out over Commonwealth Stadium. I think this is the time for them to get a win at home, really start to get excitement in that fan base to say we're for real. We can kind of make a push here down the stretch, whether it's getting into that third seed or maybe even a crossover, depending on if that third place team stumbles in the East. If not, I think they're going to be able to be competitive here to maybe take out Saskatchewan and or BC. That's not really found themselves yet either. So should be interesting. I'm going to go with Edmonton because I think they're going to be able to play like the more confident team, and hopefully they just don't Edmonton all over themselves. But that will do it for this week's weekly picks. I'm excited for another doubleheader, Friday, Saturday. We've been getting the ones on Saturday, but it's been usually the lone games on Friday and the B and BC. It's going to be good to kind of as Blake and I were talking about, just enjoy it from a fan perspective this week. Watch some of the matchups that have some really good rooting interests behind them, and should be a good week. So, Coach, before we get out of here, as you mentioned, you're going to go do the reactions after we get off of here. But anything else that the people can get ready to see from you this week?
When's your announcement coming out?
You got to wait on the CFL to make that announcement. They said soon. It's all on TSN right now, but when it happens, we're gonna celebrate.
We gonna
All right.
celebrate a great cup.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. All right, Coach. Thanks for joining us once again. We'll put your social media and all that stuff in the description below, and we will see you next week, Coach.
Yes, sir. Y'all take it easy.
Thanks, Coach.
Have a good week, Coach. That was Coach Phil joining us once again. Shane joining us via his picks via DM. So I appreciate both those boys as always. It's been a lot of fun doing it. You know, had fun with just doing it, just you and me. But it's fun. When as we do with BCSU picks, which we'll do here in a little bit, agreeing on the same pick, I feel like week after week isn't as fun if you're able to have some different opinions in there, different fan bases as well, right? With the three different fan bases represented,
Yep.
so some rooting interest in there as well. And I think it's a good time with Coach and Shane on a weekly basis making our picks. So, any final thoughts here? I was about to call you Shane, Blake, from a CFL perspective before we change gears to a little BCFC CGFL action.
No, I just wanted to say that I wanted to say this with Coach, but I can still say it now. These next 2 weeks are so huge for the Edmonton Elks. As I said during the picks, I think this is to prove that they've really turned the corner permanently. But if they win both these games, or win this week, lose next week, lose this week, win next week, by a greater margin than whatever the Bombers win by, they will hold the season series with Hamilton, or not Hamilton, sorry, Calgary, or not Saskatchewan yet either. Calgary, BC, and Winnipeg, with one more game coming up against Saskatchewan. And if the Riders don't beat them by more than 10 points, I believe, they will hold the season series with all four of their Western Division opponents. And that could come in huge, as that is, of course, the first tiebreaker if there was ties at the end of the season.
Yes, well said, buddy. And I'm so interested, as I've said it a number of times, with just the implications that could happen coming out of this weekend with the matchups here coming in the next month or so. This is the time to really decide things, right, Blake? With who's going to sit where in the standings, who's going to get the pivotal first round bye, who's going to have to travel to where, who's going to God forbid BC slips to third and has to travel somewhere, man. Like these are
Oh,
some big time matchups here. Obviously,
both.
BC BC
We
is kind
hope
of
they'd have to travel to both, but
well, BC is kind of it's kind of out of their hands now because they play a lot of Eastern teams here down the back half, or at least I know it's Saskatchewan, Calgary, but Montreal in there. Um, who do we play out of the bye? Is it Hamilton?
Hamilton,
Yeah,
Hamilton,
Hamilton. So two of our four remaining games against Eastern opponents, Saskatchewan and Calgary in there. I think by the time we face Calgary, Calgary will be fizzled out. That Saskatchewan could be an interesting one
massive.
for playoff implications in Regina, which is even bigger. To go in there and win is going to be, I would imagine it'll be, shaking up a bee's nest and trying to go in there and get a victory with them, in Pilsner country and being riled up with, playoffs around the corner. Hopefully we'll cross our fingers they're out of things by that time as well. But that's what 3 weeks away. I would think they won't be that far out of things. If they go 1-2, 2-1, I think they'll be just fine. And that game should have implications regardless of what what Saskatchewan goes on. Maybe if they go 0-3, that could be pretty much good night Irene. But we will see. It's still a lot of time away. Let's focus one game at a time. Blake, before we get into some CGFL action, let's get into some personal news, buddy. Guess what? 1K, buddy. We hit 1,000
We
followers
did
on
it. Let's
Instagram.
go.
So super exciting to announce, and it's been a goal of ours for a little bit here now. I believe we've only been running the account for not long. I want to say, let me quickly check here when our first post was. Of
It's
course,
like
I actually,
it,
of
it's
course, I
in the it's in the spring. I know that.
of course I check and we're back down to 999. But before I was checking earlier, we were at 1,000 followers, the big milestone. So I'm gonna say we officially hit it. If I have to go make an Instagram account just to follow us, I will. Um February 26th. I'm gonna say March. Basically, March was our February 26th, I made this post, which was just our logo announcing that we had made an Instagram. And then, basically our first actual post wasn't until March 7th. It was the Okanagan Sun one, the Taylor Lewan wearing an Okanagan Sun sweater in a little vlog that he made. So basically, March is when we officially launched the Instagram. March, April, May, June, July, August, September, 7 months we were able to gain 1,000 followers basically out of nothing, which is super cool. If you look at that, what is that? Basically 710 or so, or 700, 110 or so followers a month or so, something like that. A ballpark, maybe
Approximately.
115 or so, which is pretty cool to think about. We're basically getting like 25 followers a week, new followers that are following us, finding our content in some sort of capacity. And it's just another reason to shout out everybody that is listening tonight on Instagram, on YouTube. We couldn't do this without you guys, and are super appreciative for every single one of you guys that tune in. Jay, some of the regulars that tune in on a weekly basis. Obviously, we're super appreciative of our day one followers and stuff like that. But everybody that follows or comes across our stuff that they're scrolling on Instagram, they're scrolling on YouTube, and just our stuff pops up on their algorithm is super cool to come into strangers' living rooms or phones and connect with them and they've enjoyed what we're doing on a weekly basis. We don't have crazy numbers or viewerships, but it's fun just kind of interacting with people that tune in or comment maybe afterwards or are able to not tune in on the live show, but watch it after hours or when they have some free time and are able to kind of see them in public. One of them was Bobby. I didn't realize Bobby was kind of
Yep.
such a fan of the show, and was when I was able to meet up with him at Touchdown Pacific, even though he's not in the comments all the time or stuff like that, not putting his stuff in the chat. He's paying attention and stuff like that, and was able to chat with him on some of our takes and what we talk about on a weekly basis at Touchdown Pacific. So it was super cool to kind of hear and interact with some of our people that pay attention to us on a weekly basis. So super grateful to everybody as always. We thank you guys so much for following along. Next, as always, guys, subscribe to the YouTube channel. It'd be greatly appreciated. I believe we're at 253 subscribers, I believe, last time we checked. I think me and Blake made the goal to hit 254, excuse me. We made the goal to hit 300 subscribers by Grey Cup.
Great cup.
So we will make sure we clarify by the end of Grey Cup. So we'll give us to maybe Monday morning, November, what is that, 19th or something like that?
18th.
18th,
18th. Yeah.
to hopefully do some networking, hopefully get the name out during the week, as we just mentioned. Hopefully, do a live show there as well. Would be super cool, I think, for all four of us to do. So hopefully, able to gain some followers and subscribers that way. But continue to subscribe. When you guys do, press the notification bell. You guys will get notified every time we go live or upload any sort of content, like the previews, like the post game shows, as well as the Canada West weekly shows, YouTube shorts, VI Raiders, players, coaches interviews, all that sort of stuff, that's coming to you guys on a weekly basis. So, lastly, Blake, we mentioned last week we had the Area 51 sponsor, which, shout out to them.
The
They sent
Rouge.
me the Rouge football, their composite Rouge football. Blake, this is crazy, actually.
Oh
Look,
gosh.
look at this! Look at this freaking box, man! Look at how big this thing is. Full of footballs.
Nice.
So super excited to be partnering with them, doing some content here in a little bit. So you guys can stay tuned. I'm going to be actually working with, collaborating with Hamish. Hamish is who I also collaborate with the VI Raiders team with. Me and him kind of tag team the social media and all the content. He's kind of like the brains behind the operation because he works. He knows how to work like the camera side of things. He's lent me his camera for numerous games, able to shoot some of the games, and then with some of the graphics as well, he's kind of the, like I mentioned, the brains behind the operations, able to do that. So hoping to do actually our flag season, Blake, starts up here Monday night.
Nice.
Actually
Nice.
lucked out, hopefully getting the 8 o'clock game because my Buffalo Bills play at 4:30. This Monday night's actually a double header in the NFL. So hoping to get home from work about 3 o'clock, kick back for about an hour, kick off at 4:30. Probably the game ends about 7:30, hoping to be scheduled. I asked Sean, commissioner of the league, head coach of the VI Raiders, but he's commissioner as well of the Flag League, to schedule our team for 8 o'clock. So I'm hoping he's fulfilling his promise. Sean, if you're watching, make sure that we're scheduled for 8 o'clock, because I don't want to miss any of the Bills game. But planning to do and work with Hamish on doing a little bit of a mic'd up series this flag season, hoping maybe a few of the quarterbacks here would be interested in using the Rouge football from Area 51. Unfortunately, I know it's a composite ball, but hopefully, maybe if we're able to get some traction with getting the name out, getting the word out, we can maybe get the leather ball that they're doing, the Rouge leather ball, that Area 51 puts out, and would be great to get some content with that as well. So stay tuned for that, guys. Hopefully, doing a giveaway as well. I guess we can maybe tease it. I'm hoping to get to, you know, with Blake and I getting to many BC Lions games, with me getting the media pass this year, hoping to, maybe put it in one Matt Baker's ear. I know maybe he might be watching as well. I know I'll pass it along through email when I get the chance, but maybe get a signature of one, maybe a quarterback, maybe Nathan Rourke, Vernon Adams. See if we can get a couple signatures on a football and then give them away on the channel here. I think that would be a cool opportunity for
For
somebody to,
sure.
get one of the Rouge footballs so they can kind of, throw it around the backyard. I know I mentioned I'll give one to you and Jack so you guys can enjoy one as well. But I think it'd be cool to give one away, without any signatures on there, but one with some signatures of it, maybe some BC Lions here for some fans that are listening. I know there's actually a few little girls, they kind of made like a fan account. I believe they're called Roar a Little More, I think it is, on Instagram.
That's awesome.
I'm not able to see it. We're not able to see it through the StreamYard platform because I know we get Jay's comments in here every week on the show, but on Instagram, they're always commenting like usually every other week, or usually on one of the post game or preview shows that we go live for. And I
That's
usually miss it.
awesome.
I usually miss it because I can't pull up the Instagram comments as we're doing StreamYard. I have to do it on two different like web browsers. But I think there's a ton of younger fans that are listening and watching on a weekly basis, right? That I think would like a giveaway like that. That maybe could use a football in the backyard, that sort of thing. So super excited to partner with Area 51, and should be a lot of fun here. I think we're gonna do some ad reads and stuff like that on the weekly show. So stay tuned, folks. You might have to unfortunately hear basically some commercials. I know people are complaining on streaming and stuff like that. They're like, we don't pay for our cable because we're trying to get rid of commercials. We unfortunately might have to go down that road as well because business is business, folks. We'll just put it that way.
Indeed.
Hopefully, able to get some other opportunities as well with Area 51, and if you guys haven't, go check out their guys' stuff as well. I'll put actually their social media and their website in the description below. You guys can go find them at area51.com. They are a football basically equipment company, and they, any sort of equipment football standpoint that you would like, you can get it from them, and their different menu and catalogs, from helmets to equipment, shoulder pads, cones, blocking pads, you name it. Like I mentioned, they got it at area51.com. So go check them out over there. We are super appreciative to partner with us. So, Blake, let's get into it, buddy, before we get a little bit too long here. Actually, I guess doing pretty good considering, actually, it's only 7:05. Um, BCFC week number 10. Let's
Coming
get
down the
into it.
back stretch.
We are a bit down the back half, and we get to talk about my VI Raiders back in action after the bye week against the Kamloops Broncos. I will save you, I guess, a little bit of rambling, Blake, I would imagine. I hope you're going to get a knuckle sandwich if you go against the VI Raiders this week. But I will kind of, I guess, go off a little tangent to save you any. But I'm going to say this, and hopefully I'm not going to get screwed here, because I said I think this last week or 2 weeks ago, and he ended up not playing. But I believe Sadler Smith should be back in the saddle, back riding the cowboy. Keys to the office, once again, best quarterback, best player, I believe, in the conference. And we've seen a little bit of a stumble here the last 3 weeks of the season from the VI Raiders that we haven't been accustomed to. No offense to the young fella Brady Dornez, who's been filling in. Winnipeg boy, I think he's gonna have some better years ahead of him. I think we've seen that he is still fresh, 17 or 18 years old, a rookie coming into the CGFL. You're not meant to win some of these games, right? Where you're playing against
No.
22-year-olds, guys that have been doing this, playing in this league for many, number of years, and then you peel back the curtain a little bit more. Some U Sports dropouts, some former SFU guys, NCAA products. So a lot of talented guys in CGFL who would be watering at the mouth to get a rookie quarterback like that to go against, and unfortunately he just hasn't seen enough of the defenses and enough of live game reps to be ready quite yet. There's no offense to him. I think, like I said, he's going to be a just fine in a few years when maybe Sadler ages out. He could be potentially the quarterback of the future. I think trial by fire, and it might be a little bit of you know hopefully if he can use this in the right way and it doesn't come with a little bit of PTSD, seeing ghosts when the next time he sees some game action. If he uses the right way, this can be a beneficial stage for him to get 2 live game reps. I was able to actually reach out to him via DM after the last past start here, and just kind of give him a little bit of confidence being an alumni, and just say, buddy, like I didn't play my first kind of down until my third year. I didn't get my first start until my fourth year. So you getting a start in your rookie year, I think will be beneficial for you down the line, and the game will only slow down for you. To get back from a VI Raider standpoint, Sadler Smith is going to do wonders for them, and I think this will be a game for them to get back on track. Hopefully, not many Kamloops guys are watching here tonight, but a get right game. When I was playing, this is a stat pattern game for us, where we knew Kamloops, or PG, one of the weaker teams, was coming to town, and we were going to be able to feel good about ourselves after the game, because we are going to be able to have a good game offensively, and execute well. So I'm going to go with the VI Raiders. Like I mentioned, you better go with the VI Raiders as well. You're getting one, Blake. But do you have the VI Raiders, and do you have anything else to add?
No, I have the Kamloops Broncos. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I do have the Raiders as well. This is as you kind of said, it's unfortunate the way this season ended, because if the picks go to my liking this week, the VI Raiders will still technically be in playoff contention come week 11, but it's going to be really hard for them to make the playoffs no matter what happens. Although I will admit they can help themselves out, as I believe it is next week that VI and Valley play each other.
West Shore.
But
They play West Shore next week, and then they play Valley.
yeah, so it's going to be really tough for the Raiders to make the playoffs, but I think for one more week they are going to keep their hopes alive, and in the process they are going to eliminate Kamloops and I believe PG as well.
Yes. So well said. Let's get on to West Shore traveling up to the Okanagan. to take on the undefeated Sun. Who do you got, Blake, and why?
Uh, I think I'm going to have to go with the Sun in this game. Last week's game went pretty much as I predicted it would between the Rams and the Rebels. The Rebels had it close up until halftime. They had a 7-6 lead at halftime, I believe. And then Gob Dang returned the opening kickoff of the second half for a touchdown for the Rams. And after that, the Rams defense, as they've done all season long, except for in that that first Raiders game and the two Sun game, locked it down. Didn't allow the Rebels really anything. They allowed one field goal the rest of the game, and the Rams won 23-10. I think that Sun defense is almost as good as the Rams defense. They're really a 1 and 1A type scenario in the BCFC. And the Rebels, we talked about it at the beginning of the year that we expected a drop off for them a bit. I think last week kind of proved that. They are the third best team in the BCFC, but that's all they are. They are the third best team. And I think the Sun are going to win this game.
Yep. I too have the Okanagan Sun because I think they're the best team in the BCFC this year. They don't blow you away, but they had, you know, I think probably the second best player in the conference in Elon Noah, I believe is how you
Noah, yeah.
pronounce it. Running back from New Orleans coming up here. Another American as Sather Smith, Blaze McCarty. A lot of Americans, a lot of global players as well with the new rule of allowing, I believe it's 5 global players on every roster as well. It's been cool to see I guess like I don't know what the right word is, but like the new era, I guess, of the
Yep.
BCFC and CGFL football of recruiting outside of the country and being able to attract some of those talents, right? Guys that you know talking about Americans, right? Of guys that have much more opportunities at home around them, right? But wherever they may be, they can't find a home, or maybe just not the right fit. They find a home up here in Canada and able to make do. I even look at UBC with the two American quarterbacks and throughout U Sports as well. So been interested to see. But let's get back to the last matchup. Two BIs, two Okanagans. We have, I think, another clean sweep probably with Langley Rams traveling to the Valley. Traveling, geez, long ways from Langley to Valley. Tell you that.
Oh,
What is it?
yeah, that half an hour drive.
Yeah, if you had traffic, geez. But I would imagine you're going to Langley Rams as the rightly so, the bias behind that. I am gonna also go with the Langley Rams. Don't see much hope for the Valley Huskers. I think they've underwhelmed for me personally this year, and I thought they were going to be much better and be a competitive bunch. But when they face some of these top tier teams, they've really struggled to be competitive and they've beaten up on some of these teams towards the bottom of the conference, and we'll see when they play VI here in 2 weeks time. But until they beat an upper top tier team, I think that the question still remains of if Valley can even beat the top 3 teams above them. So I'm gonna go with Langley. I would imagine you are as well. But any final thoughts when it comes to Langley and Valley?
No, just that defense is really, really good. Valley had their time kind of beating up on the Rams, I believe, after never beating them before 2 years ago. They swept them 2 years ago. I believe they also swept them last year when the Rams were kind of in their downswing, if you will. Although, which is that's kind of funny to say because both years they ended up making the playoffs. But in their downswing, if you will, if after winning the Canadian Bowl, the Rams showed who was the better team in Langley, and I think they're going to do it again here in Chilliwack. Rams win. It's a clean sweep all around this week.
Clean sweep. Blake and I have VI, Okanagan, and the Langley Rams in this week's BCFC week number 10 picks. So, Blake, that doesn't leave too much for us to discuss anymore. I think to end things off, we'll quickly discuss our BC Lions who continue to just 2 steps forward, 1 step back. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. We get a little bit of confidence here. I still have that confidence, Blake, but where I will start and then pass it over to you, I think, is Probably my biggest concern now, as I've said here on a number of shows dating back to our time, our first show last year, my biggest worry was always Vernon Adams not being consistent in a big time game. And I've said that numerous times. Now, my biggest concern would be the offensive line not being consistent enough in big time games. We've saw throughout a number of games
Yep.
this year, they've done enough to, keep the quarterback, whoever quarterback may be under center, upright and able to, have enough time to go through his reads and throw. We've seen the last 2 weeks that they had victories over Ottawa and Montreal. We saw that Nathan was able to have plenty of time, and throughout that MOP stretch that VA was going through week 2 to about 7 or 8 there, he was having plenty of time. There was number of games I remember him sitting down back in the pocket, being able to go through not just one or two of his reads, but 3 or 4 of his reads, right, and make full read throws. And then obviously we've seen William Stanback have an emergence this year and be unbelievable running the football for BC, which has been, I think, the biggest missing factor for them the last few years since they let James Butler go. But then comes the games that we saw last week, the game we saw week 1 versus Toronto. Maybe it's just Toronto. Toronto has our number though for sure, dating back to even a few years ago, which is crazy. Every time we go to Toronto, it feels like we just don't play to par, don't play the team that we are. Now they come out west, and we feel like we're going to be able to beat up on them. And it was the exact opposite. So, Blake, any thoughts from a Lions perspective before we get out of here? As I see Carly's in the chat.
Yeah, I saw that too. Yeah, no, I would agree with you. I'm really worried about that offensive line. As the offensive line goes, the whole team will go. Um, I think that we thought they'd turn the corner. It was clear the offensive line did not turn the corner, and they got pounded last week. Like the score was a little bit closer than it really was. They probably should have lost by a lot more. I don't know what to feel. Like I think I've said it numerous times as well as you that I think the Lions are still good enough. I think they will finish at worst. I think they will finish in second, especially with the schedule they have to finish the year. And I feel like they can beat one of probably Edmonton or Saskatchewan. Who knows? Maybe Calgary sneaks in, and for a third year in a row, it's Calgary coming to BC Place for the Western semifinal. But the question is, and it's been said numerous times by the coaching staff and management that it's Grey Cup or bust. Can you beat the Winnipeg Blue Bombers? And if it's in, I don't think it really matters whether the Lions, whether the Bombers are able to, whether they stumble for the last few weeks here. As we said, maybe hopefully the Elks can steal one, maybe 2 games off them. And if that's the case, then the Lions are back in the driver's seat for first place in the West because if they win out, there's no way that the Elks could catch them. So, but even if the Lions did finish first and it was the Winnipeg Blue Bombers coming to BC Place, that we've already seen it last week or last year, I should say. I believe in week 10 or 11 or whatever it was. And then again in October, the Bombers came into BC Place and they beat the Lions. Same thing this year in Nathan Rourke's first start. They came into BC and they beat the Bombers beat the Lions. So the question is going to be that if in fact that is the Western Final for the third year in a row, are the Lions going to be able to beat the Bombers? And then you worry about the Grey Cup if, in fact, you are lucky enough to get there.
Wouldn't it be something? I know this would have to take a lot of wild outcomes, but wouldn't it be something, Blake, that if the final Western Division standings finished like Edmonton, Winnipeg, BC?
I don't
Uh,
even want to think about that because I don't want to, like, it's bad enough going to Winnipeg for a West semi or a West final, but, like, can you imagine going there for a West semi?
oh man, because like imagine if BC continues to struggle, they go 1-1 or something like that, right? Where they go
Yep.
get to what would it be?
10 and
What are they?
so let's say they go 3-1, they'd be 10-8.
Yeah, so they go 10-8. Cal or Edmonton sweeps the matchups versus Winnipeg
So they went
and
out, they'd be 10-8, but have the tiebreaker.
over us, and then they'd have the tiebreaker over Winnipeg as well.
Correct.
Winnipeg would have the tiebreaker over us, and finish in second probably if we had the similar records, and it would be absolute chaos in the Western Division. I couldn't imagine that because to come from where Edmonton has to start the year and finish in first place would absolute obviously, I will always root for BC, but a little part of my heart would probably root for Edmonton in that circumstance because of the
Well, every
storyline and just like the Cinderella story of literally starting from the bottom and making it to
everyone
the first
talks
place.
about the 2011 BC Lions who started 0-5 like the
Yeah,
Elks did, although they did not start 0-7. They did not lose the next two games, but I believe they were 1-6, so they were pretty darn close. They turned it around, finished 11-7, and won the Grey Cup. And everyone's like, "That's a one-off that almost never happens. It'll probably never happen again." But that could, I mean, the Elks could only the best they could finish is 10-8, but that could be a very realistic possibility as that year it was the Lions who overtook the Elks. The Elks ended up finishing second in the West, hosted the Western semi, won, and then came to BC Place and lost in the Western final.
yeah, it's gonna be chaos, folks. It makes things interesting. Like I mentioned, you can't tune out of any games from now on because things are gonna have huge implications down the stretch. So, Blake, before we get out of here, everybody that's tuning in on Instagram, on YouTube, please, if you're on YouTube, please like the video. It'd be very important for us getting
Massively
into the
like it.
algorithm of everybody as well. If you're down there, you might as well subscribe. I believe the subscribe button is there as well. It would be greatly appreciated. If you guys are on Instagram, if you guys aren't followed, please follow us. But you guys should if you guys are seeing this on your feed right now. What you could do, if you would be greatly appreciated, is be a friend, tell a friend, share our content, share our the post we made for the weekly show. Let people know what we're doing on a weekly basis, the content that we're posting. It would be awesome from us to you. And Blake, any final thoughts before we get out of here, other than the usual like, comment, subscribes?
No, just if there's no BC Lions game this week, I had planned to go to Chilliwack. Some stuff has come up, so that will not be able to come to fruition. But if you are in Chilliwack, that is in Okanagan this week. So if you're in Kelowna, if you are in Nanaimo, get out to your local BCFC stadium. Even on Friday night, if you're anywhere in the Lower Mainland, come out to Mercer Stadium. That's going to be a really good matchup this week. The New Westminster Hayaks, who are ranked number 2 in the province right now, facing off against Notre Dame. I believe Vancouver College, who's ranked number 1, is hosting their homecoming against Rutland, who's number 3. So there's some really good varsity matchups. Make sure to get out to your local BCFC, your local high school. Cheer on those players. UBC as well. I almost forgot. They have their homecoming this week as well on Friday night, coming off their first win of the year. Canada West is just a cluster, you know what, right now. I
It
believe
is.
I saw Manitoba, I believe, is the only undefeated at 3-0. And
Yep.
then Alberta or Calgary is 2-1, and everyone else in the conference is one and
One
two.
and two. Yep.
So it's crazy. So even if you don't make it out to your local high school park on Friday, get out to UBC, get out to your local high school park, get out to any of your local BCFC parks, and enjoy some football as the Lions are, of course, on their bye this week. And if you don't get out to any, as always, make sure to tune in to the CFL as all 4 games this week are really, really good. They're really intriguing matchups. You've said it twice already this week, Cole, but it's getting to the point of the season, and especially with the way the standings are, like literally nobody's been mathematically eliminated yet. So every game it means something right now. And we saw last week, we thought it was going to go one way, and it went the complete opposite. So it's sure going to be fun for the next 6 weeks, I believe, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Yeah, next 6 weeks of the regular season, and then the 3 weeks leading up to the Grey Cup. There's only 3 weeks left of the BCFC as well. October 5th is the last week of the playoffs, and then or the regular season, I should say, they will be into their playoffs. The BCFC champion will be hosting the Prairie champion this year in the Canadian Bowl semifinals, and then the winner of that will travel to the Ontario champions. So as we get into late September, early October, that's when high school picks up and stuff like that. It's a great time of year. You got the NFL as well. Both our Bills and Seahawks are 2-0. So just make sure to tune into your TV. That's all I have to say. I kind of stole your stick, but and I know it was long winded, but yeah, just watch football.
There's not enough hours in the day. I've realized that doing the doing our weekly show, doing our BC Lions coverage, doing a little bit of BCFC stuff and the Raiders, and then U Sports. There is literally not enough hours in the day to watch all the football that is being on right now with NFL season kicking off. As you mentioned, high school. Still haven't gotten out to any high school games or any of the Pop Warner games that a few of my friends coached here in town. Love kind of it's John Barsby's right down the street from where I live, Blake. So a couple of my good buddies
Good
there coached
JV
those.
game earlier today.
Yes, a couple of my good buddies coach the grade 7-8 team, the junior Bantam team, and they have a great atmosphere there on Saturdays. They bring out the barbecue and cook up hot dogs and hamburgers and stuff like that. I usually go down when they're at home and grab a burger, grab a hot dog, and enjoy a little bit of just some of the community football, and it's awesome. And well said by you to get out to any of your local parks, wherever you may be. There should be some football, and if not, I guess go sit your ass on the couch and enjoy some that way. But that'll do it for Blake and I this week. Thank you guys for tuning in as always, and we'll see you guys next Wednesday.